Life is too short to learn everything on our own. And this is the reason why we interview amazing developers across the globe who are kind to share their experiences, tips, and best practices to help you learn and level up. Hi, and welcome to What Developers Say About IntelliJ IDEA. I'm your host, Mala Gupta. And today I'm pleased to talk with my fellow Java champion, Anna. Hi, Anna. It's a pleasure to have you on this series.
Hi, Mala. I'm happy to be here today with all of you and hope you'll find this session useful.
Absolutely, Anna. So I'm not done with the introduction yet. Anna works as a developer advocate with Red Hat, and she's also the co founder of the Bucharest Software Craftsmen community. And she likes to work with a lot of Java frameworks, Cloud, Kubernetes, and Helm. And let me share a fun fact about her. She went to art school and studied history of arts, and even nowadays, she is good enough to be a good tour guide for friends when going out to arts museum. Anna, I'm curious. Tell me about the transition from studying history of arts to programming.
I went to art school I started when I was 7 and ended it when I was 14 before high school. The reason being, I, like probably many kids, like to draw. And from what I remember, I also draw a freshly painted wall inside the house. So my mother thought it would be an interesting idea, like to see if this area is something that would attract me. I went to the art school. And among the things studied there in the last years was history of arts, which was pretty much was very insightful for me. Learned a lot, and yes, I was also drawn to maths. So when I was 14, my father and my mother talked to me and asked me what your plans are. How do you see yourself? Do you see yourself becoming an artist, or do you see yourself more drawn to mathematics or informatics? I really thought a lot at that time, but I couldn't picture myself as an artist. So I said to myself, okay, I'll go on this path for mathematics and informatics and see if it's something that fits me, if it's with what I do, what I like to do. And if I have time, I can continue with my artsy part and still dedicate some time to that one. In the end, I started allocating more and more time to maths because I became more proficient in that, thanks to the teachers that I had in school as well. However, even nowadays, when I'm presenting, when I'm doing my slides, sometimes there's something popping up in my head and saying, the center of interest in this slide is not okay. Or I'm thinking where is my attention drawn in this big picture here? I'm having a little bit of obsession with the diagrams. It was in the past, but also sometimes with how the code is being displayed. I'm just, probably some of that is coming from the past as well, like things being nicely arranged and looking good. It helps us a lot, I believe, not just being only strict and focused on algorithms and all that. Helps with our intuition and creation.
Really interesting, Anna, and I completely agree with what you mentioned about having diverse set of skills and interests. It really helps us as a creative person because I know you are working as a developer advocate. Earlier, you were working as a tech lead, and though programming is not seen as a creative field by a lot, I would like to tell them all, no, it's not. We do have to be really creative in the way we think about the problems and the solutions. I have seen you live coding in IntelliJ IDEA at a lot of conferences. So I would like to ask you, when did you start working with IntelliJ IDEA and why?
The first time I was a user of IntelliJ was in 2016 when I joined for a brief time a project that was multi-module. It was monolithic, but multi-module monolithic. And IntelliJ was the IDE that at that time could have supported importing 36 modules, if I'm remembering correctly. So 36 Java projects with a lot of code without like dying. So don't get me wrong, I know how to tweak a lot of the settings about Java and running the IDE and everything. But for that time, I turned to IntelliJ because of that reason, because it was helping me with that. And moreover, it had the diagrams feature at that time. I remember that. I've used that one because being so many projects, I was new to it. So that was like, I should have discovered that code. And the diagrams feature helped me into understanding what others wrote there, because it was not just a lot of Java projects, as well as a lot of code inside classes. So yes, these two features actually made me embrace at that time IntelliJ in 2016. And it was like, oh yes, it's really helpful. So these are pretty much my reasons. However, between 2016 and 2018, I didn't use IntelliJ that much. I came back to it in 2018 because from my perspective, it had everything that I needed at that time to feel like that I'm very comfortable coding and not using many tools to do my day-to-day work. So since then, I'm like IntelliJ.
I was watching one of your talks in which you mentioned about pods in Kubernetes, when you mentioned that when the pods are working, it's magic, and when they are not, it's a disappointment. So, has IntelliJ IDEA helped you in any way to work with Kubernetes?
Probably this answer will disappoint you, but most of the time I'm checking in the terminal of IDEA, like kubectl get pods to see that state. That's in a comparison with the fact that I'm also using the services area to switch between different Kubernetes contexts, But I never thought of looking at the phases in that area. That's the truth here in the services. But for example, if I'm like wanting to know what I have deployed in a certain context that I'm using, like meaning namespace, cluster, and so on, I can see very nicely in the services part. I have the workloads, I have everything about the objects that I have deployed. So everything's there, also including custom resource definitions when we're talking about working with operators or anything that's not like standardized Kubernetes. So that is helping me like to keep an eye on what is already there.
I also saw you working with a lot of Spring Boot application or a lot of other things using YAML files. So how does IntelliJ IDEA help you with writing the YAML files? Because I know a lot of people hate to work with the YAML files.
So writing YAML in the black command line with Vim, I do understand that's it's troubling. However, when writing YAML, not just for Kubernetes, Spring Boot, or working with Quarkus, so the idea is that IntelliJ has autocomplete. I mean, if you're using the Kubernetes plugin, you can get the autocomplete for the standard Kubernetes objects. If you want some extras, I also have live templates. So, for example, what I find useful, like to add on top, because I'm seeing a lot of repetitive work in what I'm doing, but it's not something standardized that's coming as a standard. I'm using the live templates, and I love IntelliJ for giving me the ability to plus and create my own groups and select to what context I want to apply that live template. I think that's an awesome feature. And another awesome feature, I think, is also coming from the Kubernetes plugin, is also having some autocomplete, and it gives you like an overview of you when using Helm charts. So that one is a little bit different because it has also the Go templates and the values are separately. But when you're like opening a Helm chart template and you have the values filled in the other one, you can get like an info about what the value is, and also there is some validation of the YAMLs for the Helm charts, for example, like, or for there's a validation for the YAMLs, sometimes saying to you, hey, you missed a tab here. You see some red X in the upper right corner. So those are very useful. Also, from my experience, not everything is like bulletproof for all the cases. In a few years back, I think 2 years ago, the plugin was a little bit not synced with the latest Kubernetes version. So if you're like using like a newer Kubernetes version, like the latest and the greatest that was released like 1 day ago, it would have been impossible probably to have somebody like pushing things there. But what I love also is about the working with the Quarkus plugin. It's bootstrapping some work for me. I mean, the ability to like start my Quarkus app also from the, I hope I remember correctly by heart now, services side. And starting my app, like instead of like writing nvn Quarkus dev, and I can start my app in the dev mode. And also like seeing, because for us, I think as users, it's very important to have a visual representation of something. And that's something that the IDE is greatly of help for us, like to give us a visual representation of the application, of the resources, at the endpoints. For example, when you're defining resources like REST services or, REST services, one. With Quarkus, I can see the endpoints, or also with Spring Boot, I can see the endpoints to which I define for my app. Also, if I'm working with GraphQL, I can see my GraphQL schema. So there are some features that can boost my productivity and make me see things instead of like, putting the pieces together. I mean, we can all put pieces together as developers, but isn't it better like to have those extra seconds of speed thanks to something visual? So yeah, this is pretty much my experience and my happy experience.
In one of the other presentations, I also heard you talking about the idea of liveness and the readiness probe for applications and using different endpoints. So I know when we are working with the application which has multiple endpoints, it really gets difficult to manage and know all the endpoints. So is there any specific feature in IntelliJ IDEA which helps you with that?
I hope I'm remembering the name of the tab correctly because I'm using it and looking at it. I think it's called endpoints. So it's where I'm like looking for my endpoints for the different apps that I'm building. I really like that I can see what I have defined, and it's good to also to try your app. So for example, if like you want to do a request and for example, you don't like to build it from scratch, you can try a request there. So you can just see, hey, this endpoint is doing as expected, like without leaving the place. And I'm really pleased that it works for a variety of frameworks. So it's not just specific to a framework. Is working with Quarkus, works with Spring Boot. So it's really, really nice to have a good overview of what's there. And another thing that I like is the GraphQL support that exists. Yes, probably on that one is not as much as many would expect, but I am very pleased with what it is because it's good to have an UI of GraphQL and seeing something that's going on with your schema and being able to visualize a few things. The same with the endpoints. Visualizing things is a great advantage instead of like go and try things on your own and reach the browser. And yeah, there's more time spent on going through the browser.
What are the features that you do not use every day, but you think are good for developers?
Funny. The feature that I am not using as often is the diagrams one, because nowadays I'm not needing too much to inspect the code to realize what's going on with it. However, I would recommend that feature to developers if, like, you are new to a project that has actually new to a landscape of projects. And you would like to understand what your colleagues did, like have an overview of what others did. That feature can help you understand better, not only the connection between the classes, but you can understand better the connection between different projects as well. So even now that we're like doing, I don't know, microservices and distributed systems, and they're isolated, and we shouldn't be that concerned about what others did because they're isolated. You can find yourself in a situation to know, like, yeah, but how this would correlate with others. So it's always good to have this feature. So I pretty much like it a lot in terms of what is given there to give insights of what was done. Other features, yeah, I think this one has been neglected. I would say that this one was neglected, but very useful.
You are working with a lot of enterprise Java applications. So, what are the features that you think are very useful for developers who are developing the same kind of applications?
Well, I think that a feature that was sometime, that's not a feature, but it's a fun thing to have. Not sure if there was I disabled that one, but I had it for some time. There used to be like a colored cat. And there's also a Mario one that has music.
I have Mario with me.
I'm sorry, I disabled those ones because I couldn't focus. But those were fun. Those were fun to have for a while. However, for the day-to-day life, I found them a little bit distracting, but they're fun. So what I found, now getting to the serious part, what I found useful is, like, for example, the plugins that are available for frameworks. For example, the Quarkus plugin helps me to see what's related to, what's specific to Quarkus, and like have a good visualization of that. Then helps me with bootstrapping a project without, leaving the IDE. And it's all these sorts of features where you can get acquainted to a technology without, spending too much time Googling what was that. And it's intuitive, meaning not that you need to like figure out what the author of that feature did. That is actually speeding us up and helping us into working and achieving more with the frameworks that we're using. So I pretty much like when things go all together and everything's like really well done. So let's say my ideal day of work is like working on some Quarkus apps, deploying them probably to the Red Hat Developer Sandbox, and being able to switch between different namespaces just using the services part. So that's how things go that smoothly for me. Like, I'm just spending my time there with the code that I like to code on, and I can be in control of everything without Googling too much.
Has IntelliJ IDEA helped you to be a happy or productive developer?
Yes, it has been doing it for quite some time, and I hope it continues to do that. So I would say that it has helped not only me, but all the teams that I worked with, because you don't have to be like, I never thought about just myself. I also thought about the others. Forgot to mention, live templates are also useful when probably some of others have used it as well. You can export live templates and you could share it with the team. So it's good to nurture that when you're working as a team. Export what you have and share it with others so that those can reuse those in the context of the project and bootstrap things easier. So yes, it definitely made me happy because I can like import things and export live templates and make things swifter in terms of collaboration, not just for myself, but also for others.
Thank you so much, Anna. I'm very sure that every developer who would be watching or listening to this, they would be really happy to learn about so many tips that you shared and your experience of working with IntelliJ IDEA. And Anna, it was lovely to talk with you.
It was lovely to talk to you as well. Thank you for inviting me, and to many more successes for IntelliJ.
Thank you so much. The pleasure is all ours. Thank you so much.